Today we're featuring Oklahoma Route 66 Association, and with us is Reese Martin, the president of the association. Welcome to our YouTube channel, Reese.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, the centennial of Route 66 is coming up soon. How is Oklahoma preparing for the celebration?
Well, we have a lot going on. We have a statewide Centennial Commission that's headed up by the Lieutenant Governor, who's been such a wonderful advocate for Route 66 and tourism as a whole since he's been in office. And that's got business owners, local citizens, folks in the legislature all talking about what we can do to help celebrate the centennial. Of course, our association is involved in that, and in addition to several other initiatives. We're encouraging communities to help tailor their normal annual festivals around the centennial, around Route 66. You know, telling folks you don't need to reinvent the wheel, but it's going to be a big deal, and people are going to be coming all throughout the year. So, a lot of plans in motion, and we'll see what happens.
You know, it is so big that I'm sure that the tourism is not going to be just from the United States, but globally.
Absolutely. I mean, before the pandemic, I would say about 75 to 80% of the tourists that we see on Route 66 are from outside of the country. They're choosing Route 66 as the way they want to view America. During the pandemic and after, you had a lot of folks locally that kind of, I'll say, discovered Route 66 because it was kind of an easy trip to take when there was so much uncertainty. And so now we have a nice blend. The international folks are coming back, and especially, with the centennial being such a big celebration, I see people on social media all day, every day asking questions as they research for their trip in a few years.
And what I find really interesting is I think a big percentage of the foreign travelers coming for Route 66 is what I would call young adults.
Yeah, it's definitely going that way. When people think of Route 66 travelers, you typically think of like older folks, maybe retired in an RV. But we're seeing a lot more younger people coming out on their honeymoon, taking the time to have an experience. And I'd say the younger generations overall, both domestic and international, are leaning more towards spending money on an experience as opposed to spending money on like things. So it's really encouraging when I'm out at a place like the Round Barn or the Blue Whale, and I see so many young people engaged in wanting to learn about these things that are part of the fabric of this country.
I've heard about your Route 66 motor tour. Is this an annual event?
So there was a motor tour this year that was a joint event between the Route 66 Association in Texas and ours here in Oklahoma. It's the second annual tour that Texas has done, and we were really happy to be a part of this one because half of it covered Oklahoma out in the west and half of it covered part of the Texas Panhandle. Route 66 is the kind of thing that most people think of classic cars and driving the road, of course. That's what it's all about. And we're hoping to make it an annual event. If you go back into our association's history, car cruises have always been a part of what we've done, but it's been a little while since it's been something regular. And so our board is already talking about what can we do in 2024. We want to have another cruise and try to have one annually, at least until the centennial and beyond that, both for members and the public and anybody to get out and enjoy the road as a group. The tour that we had just in October was a really big success. Over 100 cars registered from a bunch of different states, even had some international folks that worked it into their time exploring Route 66. Started in the town of Weatherford and went all the way to Amarillo. The first day pretty much covered the western part of Oklahoma, stopping at both of the Route 66 museums we have out there. Of course, you have to stop and visit with Harley and Eric anytime that you're out there. But it was really wonderful to have a mixture of folks that were very familiar with Route 66 and other people that this was their way to kind of get into the road and learn what it was all about. It was just a real pleasure to be able to visit with these folks and help share with them some of the history and what made Route 66 special, both historically and today. And Oklahoma has more drivable miles of Route 66 than any of the 8 states.
Wow.
Which means we've got a lot of opportunity for some fun cruises that highlight different sections of Oklahoma.
And is there a fee to participate in that event? Let's just talk about 2023. Is there a fee to participate, and about how many days did it last?
So it was 2 days. There was a fee to participate, and that fee varies depending on what we're able to arrange. It usually covers a meal, admission to any of the museums that we go to, the materials, to make it easy to find each other. Like everyone got a nice little flag they'd be able to put on their window of their car. So, you didn't just have to remember who you're touring with. You just got to look for those flags waving in the wind as you're driving down the road in case you wanted to pull over and take a picture or something and catch back up with everybody. And so, it doesn't cover absolutely everything. Of course, we encourage people to buy souvenirs at the shops and for meals that aren't covered, help support the economies of these small towns that still rely on Route 66 for a lot of their income and to make sure these places stick around for people for years to come.
That's something I try to stress that when my wife and I travel, of course, we like to stop and take pictures, but we go in and we buy something because, these businesses are in business for a profit. They're not there for charity. And it takes a lot of money and a lot of work to keep these businesses open. And it's just a good thing to support these, especially these small businesses.
Absolutely.
Well, let's step way back in time. Tell us about the early years of Route 66 in Oklahoma and who was Cyrus Avery?
So that's a great question. I mean, Route 66 was established in 1926, right alongside every other federal numbered highway. But Route 66 was something special early on, and that's thanks to Cyrus Avery. Cyrus Avery called Tulsa home. He's known as the father of Route 66 because of his influence and his real advocacy for creating a commercial corridor that connected Chicago to Los Angeles, going through St. Louis. He accurately predicted it would be one of the strongest commercial corridors in the country. He also helped establish the U.S. Highway 66 Association a couple of years after the road was established, which was kind of a marketing arm to help encourage these communities to pave the road to make it more easy for people to travel. Because Cyrus Avery's from Tulsa, Tulsa has kind of latched onto the title capital of Route 66.
Hmm.
And Cyrus Avery, of course, being very well known for Route 66, did a lot for the city here. He helped bring fresh water to Tulsa. He helped get the zoo established. He helped with our first airport. Like, he was very civically minded. But if you go out and look at any of his archives or his letters, which are available through Oklahoma State University, you just see what a passionate advocate he was for good roads and making sure that people had a way to get around in this country safely and to help support all of these towns that he found were very important, in a time when the automobile, people were still trying to figure out how to handle it. He was involved in a lot of highway associations, but of course, Route 66 is the one he's closest associated to.
So I've heard the term the Ribbon Road. Tell us about the Ribbon Road and approximately when did all of Route 66 get paved in Oklahoma?
Well, so all of Route 66 was paved about 10 years after it was established in the mid 1930s. The Ribbon Road is a section that, interestingly, was paved in a few years before Route 66 was established, and it was kind of woven into the highway as it was given that number. But what makes the Ribbon Road unique is that it's only 9 feet wide. The legend goes that they only had enough money to pave either half of the road between Miami and Afton, two towns in northeast Oklahoma, or they could pave the whole thing and just make the road half as wide. Now, this was 1922, and so there weren't a whole ton of cars around, and they just figured that if you happened to encounter another car coming the other way, you could just pull over into the gravel and let the other one go past. Of course, the roads have evolved quite a bit since then, but the Ribbon Road section was bypassed in the 1930s by a wider, more modern alignment with a nice new bridge across the river there. So it remained as is for a very long time, and you can still drive that original segment. We're currently working with the Ottawa County folks up there to help try to preserve it a little bit and make sure that people can find it and kind of drive on this unique little 9 foot stretch of highway. But it's one of the most unique stretches of pavement on all of Route 66, and we're very happy that it's in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma is such a long east to west state. About how many miles of Route 66 are left in Oklahoma, and what are some of the highlights along the way?
So we say we have more drivable miles of Route 66 than any other state, a little over 400. And that's when you calculate all of the different alignments of Route 66 that have taken place over the years. We're also very fortunate that if you enter Oklahoma on Route 66 from the state of Kansas and go all the way to Texas, you don't have to take the interstate at all. And so you can drive that contiguously all the way from Quapaw out to Texola, which we're really fortunate to have that. And allows people to really make the trip whatever they like, whether it's seeing small restaurants, roadside attractions, spending time in the big cities. So we've got a little bit of everything. People will ask me, well, what's your favorite place to stop on Route 66, or what do you recommend? And A, I could talk about that all day, and B, it's like trying to pick a favorite child. It's difficult, but I tell folks that the blue whale is probably the most famous roadside attraction in Oklahoma. It showed up on like Mercedes commercials and all kinds of stuff, and it's just such a sweet love story. It kind of ticks all the boxes for me. It helps that I've kind of seen that landmark specifically grow from being kind of abandoned and overgrown to being very wonderfully taken care of by the city of Catoosa today. But when it comes to the road itself, it's hard to beat Western Oklahoma out near the town of Hydro, because that's still the original 1930s concrete with the curbs and everything. And so as you're driving along that pavement, hearing that kind of click, click, click under your tires of those slabs, it's just like it was back in the 1930s when people were heading to California trying to seek a better life for themselves when things weren't so hot in the Midwest. But whether you're looking for a museum or you're looking for some other kind of experience, there's so much to see in Oklahoma that you're just never going to have enough time. Probably the biggest piece of advice I can give you is don't obsess on seeing absolutely everything. Just make sure you stop and take enough time to visit with the people that operate these places and that run the museums, because they're the real experience to have here. Give yourself enough time to visit with them, learn their story, and visit with the other travelers that are doing the same thing, because you never know where these folks are from that you'll end up talking to.
When my wife and I were traveling Route 66 just outside Foyle, Oklahoma, we took a small road off just a short distance off of Route 66 and found a totem pole. Can you tell us about the totem pole?
Sure. Yeah. Totem Pole Park, which is just outside of Foyle, was kind of the project of a man named Ed Galloway, who was quite an artisan, and he had fallen in love with Native American culture. He wasn't Native himself, but what he did is he wanted to create some kind of tribute to that culture and started creating this giant concrete totem pole along with a lot of other little artifacts. And if you walk around that little park, you'll see all other little totems and carved concrete logs and things like that. It's what we call Pan Indian. It represents a bunch of different Native American cultures instead of one in particular. I'm really happy to say that the Oklahoma Route 66 Association have been working with the volunteers that help maintain that site and several of the tribal nations to kind of work on helping better interpret that site so people understand what's being represented and how they can learn more from the more than a dozen Native American cultures that exist along Route 66 in Oklahoma. But it's quite a surprise when you crest that hill and see that giant colorful totem pole poking up above the tree line. If you go there and the volunteers have the fiddle house open, you can go in and see some of the fiddles that Ed Galloway carved himself. He was a very crafty person, and it's a really interesting place to stop and learn a little bit.
So, Reese, tell us about the Oklahoma Route 66 Association.
Very happy to do so. So the Oklahoma Route 66 Association has been around since 1989, and our mission involves the preservation and promotion of Route 66 in Oklahoma so that people that are exploring it know where the road is, what to see while they're traveling, and basically gives them the story so they can go out and explore it themselves. We put together a trip guide every year and make it available for free that has maps and things to see and do and helps promote our business members. Really just to provide that experience. And it always makes me happy when I'm out visiting with some of the folks on the road and I see they've got one of those booklets either in their hand or on their dashboard and using it to explore the road. All the money that we raise through our memberships, through the advertising that we solicit for that guide, go towards providing those materials and helping with preservation projects. One of the most recent ones we have is we've been working to refresh the Hampton Inn roadside attraction signs that were originally placed, about 20 years ago. A lot of them have been damaged or faded, missing entirely. And we've also opened up an avenue for places that weren't featured on that caravan all those years ago to have some signs of themselves. I actually have some replica signage back here that they provided for us to show what they look like. Of course, they're a bit bigger than that when you go out to a place like the Round Barn or out to the Route 66 Museum in Clinton. But it's amazing when people do their research, they'll use those signs to help find all these different landmarks in all 8 states. We've also helped provide those materials to some of the other state associations so they can do the same. But there's always things on Route 66 that need a little love, whether it's a coat of paint, whether it's raising attention if a building's going to get raised. not everything is successful. We're about to lose the Glancy Motor Hotel in Clinton, but we did what we could to raise awareness. And you can't save everything, but with the things that we are able to put our money towards and our energy towards, we do what we can to make sure people know what's out there, what they can do to help. And of course, we're always looking for more members, so anybody can join anywhere in the world.
Oh, so you don't have to be a resident of Oklahoma to be a member. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, to participate in preservation projects and stuff, it might be a little bit more of a drive if people want to do that. But we have members from Europe, we have members from New Zealand, all over the United States. Granted, we have more members in Oklahoma than anywhere else. And we just launched a new kids membership, which has kind of a merit system where kids can earn stickers for completing 4 different projects in a year related to preservation and education and preservation, and to help engage a younger crowd. It's important that as Route 66 goes past the centennial and into future years, that there's another generation that understands its significance and is around, that appreciates it, can help make sure it lasts for many more years past that.
That sounds great. And I want to talk about the trip guide just a little bit more. So, this is on your website, and people, do they download it or do they order it? Tell us a little bit more about that again.
Sure. So our trip guide, it is digital. You can get it, though I do prefer that people get an actual physical copy. I actually have some right here. And as you can see, it's a newspaper-bound booklet. And, we put this together, refresh it every year. And it's got maps here so people can find the road. Signage is great, but sometimes it goes missing. Activities like coloring pages and things for kids to do, has a listing of all the different roadside attractions along Route 66. And it is free. We make it available at our business member locations as people are driving, and they can order it from us directly and only pay the cost of shipping. We send out guides every week, regardless of whether it's summer, fall, winter, spring. And we're very proud of it. We've been producing that guide since 1995.
Wow, that's great. So, if a person is planning a 2024 road trip and going through Oklahoma, when would you suggest that they actually order the trip guide?
As soon as possible. You can never do too much research. Again, it's easy to get overwhelmed if you say, well, I'm just going to go drive Route 66. It's very easy for a 5-minute stop to turn into 2 hours. So understanding, kind of what's out there and planning your trip in advance, I highly recommend it. So if someone's doing a road trip in 2024, we're happy to get those trip guides out in the mail.
We've been visiting with Reese Martin with the Oklahoma Route 66 Association. How can viewers learn more about the association and follow upcoming events on social media?
Well, the best place you can do that is OklahomaRoute66.com, our website. We've got an event calendar, lists of resources for people when they're researching their trips. Of course, you can order a trip guide from us there also. You can also follow us on Facebook, Oklahoma Route 66 Association. We've got an Instagram. We've got a Threads account. We're kind of all over the place because you never know where people are going to find you when they're researching Route 66. So please feel free to use any of those channels to follow us, reach out to us, ask your questions. I also have a pretty big digital footprint, and I'm always sharing when I'm out on Route 66 or at an event like Edmond Cycle 66 that happened this past weekend, so folks can find us and come say hello.
Well, thanks, Reese. So, when you're planning your Route 66 road trip through Oklahoma, be sure to check out their website first at oklahomaroute66.com. I'd like to say thank you to our guest today, and also I want to say thank you for watching my videos. Producing these videos is just my way of giving back to Route 66 and preserving this piece of Americana for the next generation. Now, you can let me know that you appreciate these videos by just simply clicking onto this logo to subscribe to my channel. And of course, feel free to share these videos to your social media pages.